Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
Talk the Lost World, Jurassic Park. Terrible title. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man hoping I don't fall out of the hide, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hi, Tom.
Big iguanas. It's a hilarious reference to what was used to create screen dinosaurs in classic B movies of the past.
Yeah.
That's a great moment when they say, "What were you expecting to see? Big iguanas." And that's central to this movie, is kind of buying into the King Kong of it all, I think.
Well,
Like if you're going to enjoy this movie, you want to think about it like a sort of Doug McClure dinosaur movie.
I agree completely, but you know, the reference I got that I feel is almost direct is, and it's funny because we were just talking about 1976 films. It's the 1976 King Kong. The Jeff Bridges, Jessica Lange feels
yes.
like at the end, these two movies are like identical.
Yeah, the Dino De Laurentiis intervention into the Kong franchise. Yeah, is that just because it was done on a whim, and like filmmaking on a whim just looks like Dino De Laurentiis production?
No, because I mean, I remember from that movie. I mean, you know, a big, you know, ship, like Kong being in the hull of the ship, kind of like the T-Rex.
Yeah.
Getting out, all of that seems like a direct kind of pull to me from Spielberg. And
that's also Universal, and it's also Universal Studios, isn't it? Because they had the Kong ride. Mm-hmm. I mean, now they have a 360 immersive Kong.
Yeah.
Which is pretty, along with Get Back, is Peter Jackson's best work, I think. But I remember back in the day there was a practical version of that. I can remember the heat on my face as you passed the Kong animatronic puppet.
I remember it being kind of just a big face, right?
It was the 76 was the sort of blueprint for it rather than the 33.
Mm.
So maybe Spielberg just went to Universal Studios one too many times.
Well, there's not much I could do about that Jaws ride. Maybe I can.
Did I tell you about the time I recently went on the Universal Studios tour, and there was the whole pool of water was gone, and they were fixing it, and there was just a sad little Jaws model at the bottom of the,
like on a track,
like at the just lying at the bottom. But they fixed it by the most recent time I went. They fixed it, and it was as good as it ever was. Right.
Perfect. Somewhere I've got a photo of Jaws attacking our tram in probably the late 70s.
Nice.
Polaroid.
I was very happy last time I went. We had a real life Norman Bates coming out of the Bates Motel with a knife.
Oh, nice.
Following our tram, which I was very happy to see.
They still have the stupid plane crash from
yes, of course, from
War of the Worlds.
And they're still trying to. And you still this. I don't know how recently you've been, but there's also, you go through a set they built for the movie Nope, and they're still trying to make Nope happen.
Right. Yeah.
And and going through the set and the little immersive thing that they do is, you're about as nonplussed as you are when you see the movie itself. So
that's how I felt about that movie
we wanna. I think you need to move beyond. I get Jordan Peele works there; he's a big fish, but come on, guys,
pick some of his better work.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know how you'd incorporate Get Out into a universal tram ride.
Well, we seem to be on the same page for Nope, but we're differing on the Lost World, Jurassic Park,
May I
a
just say, sir?
1997 film,
Excellent transition.
right? Directed by Steven Spielberg. This movie has 54% on Rotten Tomatoes, Tom.
Well, it's over 50%, so it's a good movie.
No, it has to be over 60.
By whose law?
60% means it's not rotten.
Oh, on Rotten, yeah, but we don't take them seriously.
Yeah, you don't take them seriously.
Or I don't take them seriously. You take them more seriously than I do. Yeah, that's true. I won't speak for you on that one. I think this is a 60% movie. I'd give it easily 60%.
I think it's like a 48% movie.
Ooh. Yeah, you really don't like this, do you?
I like parts.
Jurassic parts.
Yeah, but it's a sloppy mess.
It is, yeah.
It did have a budget of $73 million, an opening weekend of $72.1 million, which at the time was a record. There was like this back and forth between the Batman series. Like, Batman Returns had the biggest opening weekend ever, which Jurassic Park took, which Batman Forever took, which this movie took.
It's a back and forth.
Yeah. In the USA, it gathered $229 million, and in the world, $618.6 million. And of course, directed, like I said, by Steven Spielberg. You probably heard of him.
I have, yeah.
I'm not going to go through his whole catalog.
He did that Amazing Stories series.
There you go.
And a couple of Columbos as well, I believe, under his hat.
He's been around.
That kid's gonna go far.
Yeah. I'll say he's the director of Duel. And leave it at that.
There's a moment in this movie where I thought it was gonna turn into Duel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, I might as well say it now. When Peter Stormare is being pursued by the tiny saws, I said I could watch a whole movie of him just being pursued by these tiny saws and
pursued by
disappearing,
dinosaurs,
reappearing, look like they're easing off, but actually they're all waiting for him.
That's great.
Yeah. What do you first before? I just want to talk about the 1997 of it all.
Okay.
4 years after Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Seems like a long time.
And the next movie is 2001.
Yeah.
They need that extra year, it seems, to get their shit together.
Well, they're waiting for technology to develop.
Sure.
So they can actually make the movie. So I guess that's part of it. The other part of it is that Michael Crichton then releases the book like a year before, 2 years before.
Probably.
So I guess that keeps that maintains the interest as well over the period of time.
Right.
Doesn't explain why Jurassic Park 3 happens, but we'll get there when we get there.
We sure will.
Because there ain't no Crichton book.
No, yeah. Pure invention. Well, we have our old friend, the Universal logo. And then I can't help... It's funny that these, both these sequels, very Isla Sorna heavy. They're very ominous. This Isla Sorna, Site B.
Well, yeah. So the first thing that happens, and this is where you sort of see the auteur filmmaking of Spielberg kind of creeping in the unlikeliest of places. We start with 30 seconds of a blank screen.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big Hollywood movie. Who does that? I'll tell you who. Noted director Steven Spielberg.
I also very much like the slow crawl, kind of straight down over the ocean, with a really good little piece of menacing music that kind of then arches up, so that we see the actual island, the fictional Isla Sorna.
I like this. Do we get it's not technically a cold open because we do get the title, don't we?
Yeah, it feels lukewarm.
It's definitely on the lukewarm side. And even the on-screen text informs us that this is a surrogate Isla Nublar.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, because not only does it say Isla Sorna, it says where it is in relation to Isla Nublar. So there's no clearer indication that it's being held in relation to the original island and that it is a surrogate than by telling you how far away from the original site it is. But we've still got the same title font.
We do.
I guess you can't sort of walk back the brand identity that's been built up around that.
I mean, it's all, this whole thing with the title is very strange because they were worried about the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, The Lost World, and they thought people were going to be confused. What? It's like, this is going to be one of the biggest sequels of all time. What goes through a fucking executive's head that people are going to be confused is beyond me. And so they were like, well, we'll just put Jurassic Park at the end of the title.
I love the idea that at the premiere there's a row of people with deerstalker hats who then walk out in
exactly.
walk out in dismay or get on their penny farthings.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid pedal off.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we're introduced to this British yacht family, which returns to the idea of private tourism.
Which A is taken from the first book.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
B is one of my implausible nonsense. The things that they have to do at the beginning of these movies to me.
Just reminding you when you talk on plausibility.
I've already accepted that they can create the dinosaurs, Tom. Okay. I watched the first movie,
all right.
Okay? The science is sound. But if John Hammond is the rich man that he's supposed to be, and now the conservationist that he says he is, he's going to have to let the Costa Rican government know, and I don't believe that any family could get onto the beach of this island in any way, shape, or form. There's got to be boats patrolling, a great big fuck you, get out of here.
Yeah, but they're rich.
I don't know. Yeah, that is made clearly evident.
but doesn't that in our day and age, doesn't that explain everything? They can do whatever the fuck they want.
I get it.
It's also interesting, like, no matter what kind of a movie Spielberg is doing, there's always a comment on children and their parents.
Yes.
That comes through so strongly in this scene. The family, the
strange
family dynamic.
Yes.
He can't help himself.
Dad could give a shit. Mom is overprotective.
I mean,
the daughter is going to be a mess.
If he wasn't so open about it in like movies like The Fabelmans, you'd read in so much Freudian shit in his movies.
Oh yeah.
So
absolutely.
But thankfully he's upfront about it, and so it just.
And that little girl's Camilla Bell, who's she's a working actor that I know and recognize. Yeah. I was surprised. I was like, she looks really familiar, and then when I was looking at the cast, I thought, oh yeah, I've seen her in shit.
Well, and more Spielberg preoccupations, child POV.
Yes.
You don't get a Spielberg movie without some kind of child POV. I guess like beginning and end framing this movie, we get child POV. And the idea of the cute creature turning bad. That's the essence.
Mm-hmm. But that's it's funny because it's one of the first things that always bothers me about this movie, and I have the same problem when we watched Prometheus for the YouTube channel.
Sure.
I do not like children or adults being confronted by creatures that they should be scared of, not being scared of them.
Oh, but that's what's great about the tiny saws. It's also like no one talks about the tiny saws, but this for me is the most effective digital live action integration yet in the series at this point.
Yeah, that I agree with. They look great, but I don't think I imagine being her age and seeing that creature and recognizing in myself, I wouldn't know what that is. I was all into
Sounds
reptile
like you've lost a
books
little
when I
bit
was
of
a
the
kid.
childlike wonder that Spielberg's trying to install in everyone's lives.
Ooh, no, that thing's got a snout that can bite me. I would be stepping back, not fucking feeding it.
Okay. All right. I buy all of it because it's encased in that Spielbergian wonder of, by that same logic, why doesn't Elliot immediately stab E.T. in the heart? I mean, because they're children and they're open to these kinds of experiences.
You know what he does? He throws a ball in, and when it comes out, he screams and runs away. That's what he does.
Yeah, and then he does exactly the same. He feeds it.
No, he doesn't.
Totally
He doesn't put his hand out to its mouth. He drops Reese's Pieces. It's different, Tom.
But
he
she's
handles it differently.
entitled. This is all consistent for me. I don't. She's this entitled kid. She's never been told no in her entire life. She's the Veruca Salt.
Nothing can hurt me.
She's the Veruca Salt, right?
Fine.
But the feel of it is like classic monster movie. Like
It is.
You're on the deserted
Like,
island. The whole sort of, the all the sailors dressed to the nines. The wait staff.
It even includes an overwrought scream.
Yeah, and the having, because this is the first time we're in Critters territory, and I don't mean the film series Critters. I mean like
Okay.
the monster movie about lots of tiny creatures massing and swarming.
Mm-hmm.
The birds or the swarm or something like that. So it's already a different type of monster movie than the sort of the sort of King Kong Godzilla of the original, I think.
Yeah, and you certainly get that because when you go from the scream to the hard cut of Malcolm yawning on a subway.
Another great auteur moment. It's Kubrickian direction. The jump cut.
Mm-hmm.
Fake Jungle and the scream to the subway sound. Love it.
Well, I'm
Technically accomplished filmmaking.
Yeah, fine, but
More than fine. I don't see.
It's not hard. It's not hard.
I can't
to
do a
jump
transition
cut.
like that.
I don't know that it's auteurism.
Yeah, it's thinking like Stanley Kubrick would think, which I know is a big thing for Spielberg, but that's the way it came across to me. It's like we want a really interesting jump cut here, both sound and vision, and they pull it off.
Yeah, fine.
Plus, we've never been on them. We've never been urban before. This is the first urban scene that takes place in a Jurassic Park movie. And we're reintroduced to Dr. Ian Malcolm, who, in classic Imbas style, is both a legacy character and a celebrity within the world of the film.
Yes.
In a scene which is only there to tell us what's happened between the end of the last film and the beginning of this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this. I like this idea of like this guy coming up to us like, I know you, don't I? I know you.
Yeah, but I didn't like the actor.
You didn't?
No.
He looks like a subway douche. I thought it was good casting.
He looks like a douche who doesn't know how to act.
Okay. Well,
But I do like him being let in the door by Mr. Pitt.
I had that.
I like that a lot.
I have that note. Mr. Pitt has been sentenced to be a butler. The worlds are colliding with the Signverse here.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Newman in the original movie, and now you've got Mr. Pitt in the sequel.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and they've done something which I wish they'd stuck with. I guess you can't have the best part of the movie if you stick with this, but nonetheless, I like the idea that Malcolm and whoever else was on the island who survived have been disbelieved, and he's now discredited. So no one knows about dinosaurs. So no one believes dinosaurs.
Yeah, the part I do like about it,
and then the end of the movie, the world changes because people at large know dinosaurs exist now. So I like the reset here because it makes everything you're starting at the same point narratively.
Yeah. No, that I agree with, and I like the idea not only that he's sort of discredited and not believed because it knocks against that story, it helps you reframe the character from the rock star that we meet in Jurassic Park to a more tame version of himself, not taken seriously. And I also kind of like the aspect of the rich and powerful crushing a little person just because they can.
Mm-hmm.
And where that puts your main character.
So I guess
that's good.
My first criticism of the movie, on page 2 of my notes, is the overlit mid-90s movie look when we get into the Hammond house.
I have that note. Blared out windows. Why? That's my note.
To bolster your argument, don't remember any of that in Jurassic Park. Clearly something that starts in 1995. Like, on the dot. And the return of the older kids. So we're doing a little bit of a bait and switch with legacy characters because these kids arrive and, we have a nostalgic moment. I mean, my moment is, oh God, not these kids again. But presumably Spielberg thinks the viewers want to see these kids again.
Yeah. And I also, it's funny because one thing I thought about, the end of the book of Jurassic Park, both these characters you're told are dead.
Wow.
Hammond actually did die. Ian Malcolm died. Now the book picks up and says the reports of Ian Malcolm being dead were widely spread and not true.
Interesting.
And that's how the character lives on. But Hammond, they both die in that book.
I can't imagine. Spielberg's the guy who, when he saw Rise of Skywalker, was like, he saw it before they brought Babu Frick back from the dead, and he was like, "You just let this guy, the little Babu Frick die on the planet?" And J.J. was like, "Yeah," and he's like, "No, you got to bring him back." He's like, "Well, we clearly killed him off," and he's like, "He's got to come back at the end." And the same with Mogwai, like in Gremlins as well. He did the same thing because he was like, originally Mogwai was supposed to turn into a gremlin.
Mm-hmm.
But Spielberg said, you can't, the audience is too invested in this character. You can't have him turn into a gremlin.
Right.
He's got to stay good until the end of the movie. So I'm not surprised that several characters who died in the novel did not die in Spielberg's version of the story.
Sure.
Well, we meet surrogate Hammond and re-meet Hammond at kind of the same time.
At the same time, and that's why the movie feels muddled to me.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that doesn't work. Like, for instance, there's a natural disconnect for John Hammond, the character here, because he seems to have this conservationist realization.
Yeah.
The last time we saw him, he said, "Yeah, I too do not endorse this park." And so he's saying, everybody has to stay away from this island. We have to just stay away forever, except this little team I'm going to send. They don't worry, everything will be fine. But when all evidence, of course, points to, why would he think that for a second in his life?
They walk it back, but I think they compensate. There's the line about, don't worry, I'm not making the same mistakes again. And, Malcolm saying, you're just making a whole set of other mistakes.
New ones.
So there's an awareness on the film's part that you have to suspend disbelief about any of this happening twice for the movie to happen, which is just kind of convenience. But also,
that's how it comes across, though, as awfully convenient.
But it also comes across as, Hammond's, this is his big new pitch. It's like, okay, yeah, we can salvage this and turn it into a wildlife refuge. And that seems like the Hammond that we met in the original
The hubris
movie.
of a rich guy, the guy we knew.
It's always about the big idea. It's not enough for him just to, say, well, let's just napalm the island, which is what we all would have done.
Right.
But it's also a nod. I think it's an extra textual nod to Attenborough's brother, right? Because his brother is Sir David Attenborough. So the idea of him becoming a naturalist, I think, is ingrained in the actor playing the role as well.
Maybe.
But
he ends up doing narration on like Planet Earth and stuff like that, right?
Which Attenborough? Oh, you mean?
I think Richard.
No, David Attenborough was always that guy.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Richard ended up doing some of that.
No, he died quite a while ago.
Hmm.
This is where I realized that when it comes to sequels, Spielberg has a type, because this scene goes down exactly like that scene in Last Crusade where Julian Glover withholds the crucial bit of
totally.
crucial bit
Yes,
of
I
information.
thought the same thing. Yeah.
presents the situation to Malcolm in a way that no one ever would.
Thank God for Site B.
Yeah. He
thought,
leaves
yeah.
he totally buries the lead, which is your girlfriend is stuck on this island.
Yeah.
Which is the same as in Last Crusade, where he leaves it to the end to say, your father has been kidnapped.
And I love that he kind of blames Malcolm. Leave it to you to know all the important people in every, aspect of academia.
Yeah, it's a sort of, I don't know if it was intentional. I think it is a lot about walking what happened in the original movie back so we can have a sequel. But it is sort of consistent with the Hammond characterization that he's going to find as many excuses and rationalizations for his bad decision making as he can before he gives up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of works for me. It's weird how he seems like he's on his deathbed and then turns up on CNN at the end of the movie as if he's been fine all along.
Exactly.
That's a bit weird. And it's they also do some backdoors. I don't know if this was a reshoot or ADR, but there's some backdoor setup for the San Diego denouement here, because they mention there's 2 hours flight from San Diego. I don't know if this is where they got the idea,
right.
but they're seeding the end of the movie at this point.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well. They're trying as much as possible to make everything that happened in Jurassic Park have a knock-on effect to what you're seeing now. So the fact that Sarah and Ian are together is only because of what happened in Jurassic Park. They didn't know each other before.
Yeah.
She sought him out because of his experience there. So their relationship is a direct result of Jurassic Park.
Right, but it also kind of grains against
I'm not saying it's a good
the
thing.
Malcolm we know. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of account for it because of what happened on Jurassic Park, but she doesn't seem like the kind of woman he would date before Jurassic Park, because he was always on the lookout for an ex-Mrs. Malcolm.
Yeah, although I guess this movie also speaks to that with his daughter, right?
Yeah, true.
Although it kind of blames her for abandoning his daughter.
But they also mentioned that he's got, I think, 3 daughters or 3 kids.
Yeah,
in Jurassic Park.
I don't think. I mean, in retrospect, I don't think they needed to make these changes to the Malcolm characters, because Jeff Goldblum can carry a movie. I think they were unnecessarily anxious about the actor and the character being able to carry.
It's
the movie.
nice to have a dickish guy as a secondary character, but let's not make let's not make him front and center. People might not react well to his dickishness.
And, you just make him slightly less toxic male and a bit more of the Jeff Goldblum quirkiness, which we know he can deliver in spades. I mean, it's like you ask Jeff Goldblum to be extra quirky, he's going to bite your hand off, quite literally.
He will not have a problem.
We get a burst of the original Jurassic Park theme when Richard Attenborough's talking, as if it's his music. I really thought he was going to end the scene by saying, "Welcome back to Jurassic Park." I really did. And I bet there were conversations about him doing that. Oh, another thing in the scene, which I didn't know was intentional or not, he misquotes Malcolm from the first movie. He says
when he says
life will find a way.
Yeah.
It's life finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering whether that's intentional. And I don't know. Something about this being a Spielberg movie makes me think that that's a detail he wouldn't miss. So is he putting something in there about you can't recapture the magic of the original movie? Like, it's always going to be a misquotation of the original.
Yeah, I even thought it, like, is it just that's what we do as people? You remember it one way and it was another way. It could be as simple as that. It could
absolutely be that, because I get.
But it did have that kind of feel of movies before video, where it was like, what did he say again?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have anything to go back
All
and look at.
three possibilities are on the table, I think.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. So he says he's
Yeah.
now it's a rescue mission, and so he's got to meet Richard Schiff and Vince Vaughn.
And both sequels begin with the main character going, "I'm never going back to Jurassic Park," and then the next scene is them getting ready to go back to Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But this is where we get the long panning introduction of the RV that are going to clunk up this movie.
Yes.
The RV is the real star
you.
of this movie.
Absolutely. But everything about it, like the screen is so filled with nonsense in these moments.
It's like Fraggle Rock.
There's so much. It's like
like Fraggle Rock. You know, the scenes with the construction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just kept thinking to myself, is this what Spielberg thinks a sequel is?
I think it might be.
That idea of just adding more, you know? I mean, it's like, why is this shot so fucking busy?
Yeah.
Can't Richard Schiff, Vince Vaughn, and Jeff Goldblum all just talk to each other? Can't they just do that?
It's so true. And I think...
But it's also in this scene where at least for me, because they're trying to shoehorn in his daughter, and she's always sort of interrupting his conversations with these other men, where you feel the weight of Spielberg's insistence that there be a family dynamic and a father-daughter problem, you know? I mean, it's like an anchor on this poor fucking movie.
Yeah, it's a total albatross, and I think Spielberg was wrong about the original movie needing kids, and I think he's wrong about the sequel needing to find surrogates for those kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's as soon as she turns up at the wherever we are, Fraggle Rock.
Yes.
Fraggle Rock Central.
At the RV factory.
At the RV factory. You're like, oh, she's going to the island. I can't possibly imagine how she'd end up there, but she's going to the island.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the movie doesn't even really give you
doesn't give a plausible effort to explain, you know?
I think this movie thinks if you can distract people with RVs, you can get away with anything plot-wise.
Maybe,
if you show enough of an RV... I don't know if this is like right in the middle of the Winnebago craze, for instance, that people were like, aren't RVs cool? Don't you just want to look at them endlessly on screen? But that's what it feels like to me. I'm like, why would so much screen time be devoted to these vehicles?
I'd like to see, somewhere in the background, I'd like to see Clarence Thomas talking about
Well, fun fact.
the value of each RV.
Fun piece of trivia. He rented his motorhomes to
his motor carriage.
His motor carriage to
He's very strict on that fact.
That's right.
It's a motor carriage.
Yeah, that's right. It's two things about Clarence Thomas. It's a fetus is a person, and it's a motorhome. Motorhome carriage.
And this big thing is a motor carriage.
What a despicable human being. These are actually Clarence Thomas's vehicles that are being rented. And boy, did he charge a hefty fee.
An arm and a leg.
Because, he doesn't get paid well as a Supreme Court justice.
Well, this is one of my biggest problems with this movie.
Yeah.
How his daughter gets to that island. There is so much in this movie, and we'll go through each one as we go. But that's lazy.
I know you will.
That's fucking lazy. And this movie is like time and time again, when they don't have an answer that's organic, the movie just gets lazy to answer any question you might have.
And you know what's funny?
And this is one of those moments.
It is. You know what's funny about this scene is, again, we go back into Last Crusade territory, because they've literally superimposed the Henry Indiana Jones relationship onto these two characters. Because he's an academic who refuses to parent his child traditionally.
Mm-hmm.
She literally says at some point, like, she sort of says, "Why can't you be like other parents and give me rules and discipline and punishments?" And I mean, that's just the flip side of, "Did I ever tell you to sit up straight?" Or that kind of thing. He's an academic as well.
Wash your ears.
Yeah, so he's an academic as well, so it's exactly the same. And then when we get into the RV, suddenly Spielberg realizes how much this is like an Indiana Jones movie, and he has to pull back because that map is about to turn into the laser line map, and he goes, "Oh shit!
Into the laser line.
Hard cut to the sea. We can't have that in here."
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like the idea.
Don't worry though. In the next movie, Sam Neill will sleep exactly like Indiana Jones.
It's amazing, isn't it? And a rickety bridge to boot. But I really like. I really like the jump cut. It's sort of like Spielberg going, like, I can't do it the same as Indiana Jones. How can I do it differently?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? This will just become what it is on the map suddenly.
Yeah, right.
I kind of like that. I mean, it doesn't answer any narrative questions that need answering, but like, did they just lock her in the RV and she got taken to the island, or what? How does she explain?
Yeah, exactly.
It? Didn't she say like,
She says, "You practically told me to come,"
right.
Which is not true.
Maybe this is the VHS problem of the pre-VHS problem of nobody read back the script.
Yeah,
they just wrote it and filmed it. When we start to get to the island, this is still John. This is still John Williams. Not for the next movie, but this is John Williams.
Not the next movie.
And he's firing off his Temple of Doom, arriving in India music.
Mm-hmm.
He must have a sequel folder in his records. What did I do there? Oh yeah, that's right. He's on the making of.
All right, calm
He's
down.
on the making of featurette, and he talks about working with Steven Spielberg, and he says Steven Spielberg has never said to me in all the time we're working together, "I don't like that." But he comes into the room, and you can see from his facial reactions whether he likes something or not.
Uh-huh.
He said, whenever he leaves the room, I know what he thinks about what I should do next.
That's great. Now, I remember that we're on the boat now, and there's lots of dart talk.
Yeah. Well,
we're going to front load that, right?
We're going to front load that. The local wanting to stop and turn back, which is very King Kong.
Right. Because it feels King Kong writ large, because they're calling the islands the Five Deaths. Mm-hmm. Vince Vaughn's there interpreting.
Oh, by the way, Vince Vaughn is set up as a piece of shit from the moment he arrives in the movie.
Oh, he really is, isn't he? That was one of my notes. I was like, this guy is an asshole from jump one, right?
Yeah. And it both kind of makes me think, why do you want this character in the movie? But it also, a larger problem is, what was the appeal of Vince Vaughn in the 90s?
Well, as I understand it, there's a Jaws reference in Swingers. Steven Spielberg had to give permission for that.
I've heard
he
this
met
story.
all of them and just liked Vince Vaughn and was like, I'm going to cast him in a movie. And I'll say this, for Vince Vaughn, the character's a piece of shit, but he's not doing too much of a Vince Vaughn shtick in this movie. He's playing it fairly straight, and he's pretty good in it.
Yeah. I just, I don't know, like, it's that sort of Rosie O'Donnell quality where you're like,
yeah,
why do we think people are drawn to this actor?
Mm-hmm.
Because the way it's written, they clearly do, and directed. But anyway, I'm not going to.
We don't have to go down that road too far, I don't think.
We don't have to go down that road, but the character is an absolute piece of shit from moment one. He's the Ian Malcolm of this movie, in a sense, isn't he?
He is, yeah. But the thing is he's treated more like a Greenpeace hero, and that part I don't like.
And his characterization is all over the place because he's like a secret agent for Hammond. It turns out later in the movie,
mm-hmm.
which doesn't make sense either. And this is where we talked about this in the ranking episode. Some of the underwhelming digital effects
mm-hmm.
coming at the worst possible time because we have a recreation of the Wonder moment from the original Jurassic Park, but all you can see is blurry edges between dinosaurs and people.
Absolutely.
And you're just like, in the original movie, just the virtue of the way it was shot and edited, kept the people separate from the dinosaurs, so you could have the wonder moment where it kind of looked like it was part of the same world. It wasn't perfect by any means. It still looked like digital shit in retrospect. But we were impressed with it at the time, and a lot of that was down to the fact that Spielberg and everyone involved in the effects was careful enough to keep it separate from the rest of the action. So if they couldn't use
in that first moment, I don't even think it looks as good as I think Spielberg thinks it does. I think what ends up making it work is all the actors reacting to it.
Exactly. But now they're trying to go one step further, and they're trying to integrate that all into the same shot, and it just doesn't look like it's all part of the same world.
No, I agree.
And it's a shame.
Well, listen, we're about to meet...
Thing about beer. But nowadays, even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day, you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need. The Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They'll try new beers. They'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
We're back. Here we are discussing The Lost World, Jurassic Park. I do have a note of, it's funny because when we were just leaving, we were talking about the sort of composition of these digital effects, and they look blurry and not very good, but then you get kind of like a close-up of a puppet, and it looks great. I mean, just amazing, looks right?
Phenomenal, yeah.
It's really impressive.
The animatronics stand up better than the digital avatars every single time.
Like without question. But here's one of my lazy parts of the movie again, because these characters are stupidly, I might add, all yelling Sarah all over this entire fucking island.
It's quite funny.
And then it turns out she's 10 feet away, never responding to them. And this awkward moment of her surprising Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it's an outtake of something that they were like, oh, it turns out we never shot that again. I guess we'll have to keep this.
It's a good gag when...
shit, hello.
I can just see Spielberg directing. Then we do the shit hello. Then we go over. He probably would. He's pretty honest about what he's doing, so he probably would say that. Going back to Temple of Doom and this is what we have in every Lucasfilm production.
Yeah.
Screaming.
And then there's another thing that I think all of these movies can, I buy it for the first film because everything's new. So I get like corporate powers believing that they can have control over this park. But this idea, like none of these other sequels can really reconcile with all the evidence that is mounted against them. And they're all so content to say nothing could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, Sarah's been on this island for however long she's been and nothing's gone wrong. And then all she does is run out of film and the shit starts, right?
Yeah. What?
And it always feels, it's one of those things in this movie where with a movie like this, it's like everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it always does and has to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the disaster movie part of it.
Like, how much... Yeah, but it's, to me, I always kind of wonder...
What, you want the Inferno not to tower? The adventure not to Poseidon? What do you want?
I guess I just want my characters to be smarter than they are.
Well, they can't anticipate the the game hunting unit that is arriving on the island. That's where it starts to
No.
fall apart.
No, but she could take that camera and say, how many pictures do you have left on this?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but basically, it's like, that's what I mean. It's just lazy. It's just a lazy way to get to these creatures almost stomping her to death, because we want that visual kind of, we need that set piece, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. I'm glad it's.
Thank you.
I'm glad it's.
Thank you.
Julianne Moore.
Thank you. No, I agree.
I mean, if you're gonna lose Laura Dern, you want to gain a Julianne Moore.
Absolutely.
It's a total lateral move, and I'm really glad that we did.
She only did this movie because she owed an exorbitant amount in a divorce, and she wanted to work with Spielberg, and it works out. Works out for her, works out for us.
It really does, yeah. It's either paying off a divorce or you've got a kid. That's the only reason anyone seems to do a Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and I've got here the note that it's they have a moving shot with lots of dialogue to try and explain away the plot implausibility of why Malcolm is here in the first place, and it's like you can tell whenever they sense something's clunky, they start moving the camera a lot more to try and distract you. Yeah, it's and along again, like the kind of when she goes out to film the whatever those dinosaurs that we first see are.
I don't remember. Are they Stegosauruses?
The unconvinced Thesaurus. There's a kind of Lucas special edition idea of like, as long as the people and the digital creature are in the same, like looking in the right place, it'll look like they're part of the same world, and it's simply not the case. You know, it's sort of like...
Yeah, totally.
It's sort of like, as long as you're kind of looking Jar Jar more or less in the eyes, this is going to read.
You're good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, no, it still doesn't read.
Because there's that moment when they start stomping around when she has to back up and then duck a tail.
That's
exactly
what I was thinking of. That is such a Jar Jarism.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, you can imagine, like, whoever it is, whatever second unit director having to come up to Liam Neeson is going... I hate to tell you this, but we've already filmed it, and Jar Jar like does like a 360 swing, so you're gonna have to duck at this point. And he's like, "What's the motivation for that?" Just because otherwise it's gonna Jar Jar's gonna be
he's gonna hit
he's
you.
Gonna be on your face.
Yeah.
This is where we find out that Malcolm's
then we find out that the daughter's stowed away in the most ridiculous.
Well, also the way that we find out
possible.
is ridiculous, because she's trying to cook breakfast, or
she's trying to cook breakfast, and she started a campfire.
Well, it's an RV. This is what I mean. This movie is more concerned with what's in the RV than it is anything else.
It doesn't even matter w's in the RV, though, because nobody pays attention to it.
But
phones are ringing. They don't
as a
care.
culture are interested in 1997 in this.
Yeah.
And this is where Surrogate Hammond and Surrogate Bob Peck arrive.
Yes, totally.
And it's like so interesting, like the different kinds of surrogacy, because Hammond is related to... Hammond is Hammond. He's related to John Hammond.
Yes.
Whereas Pete Postlethwaite is just the same kind of actor as Bob Peck, playing the same kind of role.
Yeah, totally.
So it's... And he's... Except the invert...
He just seems a bit dickish. A bit more dickish.
Initially. But you warm up to him as the movie goes on.
Yeah.
Which is... I'm glad they cast Pete Postlethwaite, because he can do that.
I also, but this is one of those lazy things too for me, because there's this moment where these two characters are talking as they're trying to catch a bunch of dinosaurs, and I think to myself, they wouldn't have already had this conversation about his feet.
I knew you were gonna.
Come on.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna get me on that. I have no retort.
There's no recourse. There's nothing you could say.
You wouldn't get
about how poorly written that is.
You wouldn't get to the dinosaur island and then talk about the terms of your relationship while you're on Dinosaur Island.
Exactly.
It suggests that on the plane ride over, Hammond's like, "Can we have that conversation?" He's like, "No, I'll wait till we're in a moving vehicle on the island."
And then we'll talk.
This is what I mean. When the movie thinks something's clunky, we have a lot of camera motion to distract. Yeah. But there's a little bit of an inversion as well, which is gamekeeper turned poacher, because Bob Peck was a ranger. He was trying to look after the animals, whereas Pete Postlethwaite wants to murder them all.
You're giving the animals all the human qualities now.
So does this.
Right.
Well, that's what
he does want to murder
them. That's
them.
what this movie does. Like sympathy.
My
next note is sympathy for the dinosaur, because that lesser known
because they're wrangling
that lesser known Stones track.
But also, it doesn't. This whole catching the dinosaurs scene doesn't look very good.
Yeah, it's extra dinosaurs time. We talked about this in a previous episode.
Totally, yeah.
Jurassic Park with extra dinosaurs. They just want to up the ante, so it's like it's more important to have more dinosaurs in the scene than for to all look good.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
And then
here.
On top of it, Spielberg, there's a couple of moments in this movie where Spielberg feels as though he's going to give us some extra that will really wow us. And this scene is one of them, when the motorcycle's driving between the legs.
Yeah.
Why would anybody do that, first of all?
Keep it moving. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Keep it moving.
And then second of all, it doesn't look as good as Spielberg thinks.
No.
And that's one of the tragic flaws of this movie, is there are times when he thinks this is looking pretty good, and it looks like shit.
Yeah, agreed. But then they'll hit you with an incredible
And then I also wrote
animatronic.
there's
like the best.
Yeah,
the captured
right.
dinosaur is the best animatronic in the movie. You can see its lungs
really good.
Inhaling and exhaling. That is incredible. That's a freestanding puppet.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically a person. I mean, there's a person in there, or about 20 people in there.
Right. So you have bad work followed by great
the best work you've ever seen.
Yeah, but then I also wrote that this is too much glare even for Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. Oh, completely. And but the other inversion is changing the point of identification, where the humans are now the antagonists. We kind of flirted with this a little bit in the original movie, but now when you hear that scream, do you know what that scream is, by the way? The sound that they got?
Usually it's a combination of like 3 different animals.
So what they actually did was, this is in the making of featurette.
Okay.
They recorded the sound of a baby camel.
Yes, camel. I remember
after
that.
they took the mother away.
Yeah.
So literally, it is an animal screaming for its parent. So it is in the movie what it is in real life, and that sound kills me every time I see it.
Yeah, me too.
And because it is an animal crying out for its parent in real terms.
Right.
Yeah, and this is where Vince Vaughn reveals that there's a backup plan. Again, this movie keeps trying to tell us that stuff with which they're retconning was already in place long before. Like, even the idea of Site B when it first comes up is very much, that there was a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
Set in place. It's like, we just never talked about it in Jurassic Park.
Well, I remember thinking that this didn't sound plausible even when I read the book. I was like, this whole other island, because he gave so much weight to having the actual scientists in front of you. This machine is turning the eggs. Yeah. It all does really seem to be happening here.
They sort of say it was the breeding ground.
But yeah, I mean, it makes sense, if you were...
It's okay. It doesn't make sense. It's fine.
No, I if you're going to go large scale and like really try to, give birth to a lot of dinosaurs, I get putting on a show over here and having somewhere else where maybe sometimes they die, maybe you don't do it right, and you keep that all away from the people. I get that.
Okay. All right. But
I'll give them that.
But the fact that it's called Site B is like,
I
it's
know.
basically
Yeah, it's
what
great.
we would call it.
Yeah.
Making fun of it.
Yes.
But yet that's what it's called in the movie.
Yeah.
They're wearing their imbasses on their noses, for sure.
Absolutely.
And this scene of them freeing the dinosaurs is filmed as if it was a drama about prisoners of war.
Yes.
It's like we're suddenly in the 2000s Rambo.
Mm-hmm. I love that Vince Vaughn is, like this secret double agent. Not double agent, but he's got his job, and then he's got his other job.
Well, I presumably that's why they mentioned the Greenpeace thing, because they're like, most Americans think Greenpeace Greenpeace activists are terrorists anyway, so why wouldn't he try to, be a saboteur? And then we get to the sort of revelation of the amphitheater that they were building all along, just never
building all along right here in San Diego, our hometown.
And it's interesting that they even try and it's a full pitch, because he talks about how San Diego is the only place to do this because you've got the Chargers, you've got SeaWorld.
When he mentioned the Chargers, I thought, what does that have to do with anything? It doesn't help that they're gone now, too. But I thought he was on track. He's like, we got the zoo, we got the
zoo, yeah.
the safari park, we got SeaWorld, and, of course, the Chargers. Yeah. What?
We've got Balboa Park. We'll just put the dinosaurs there. Yeah, it's interesting how it trails off there, but I just like how it's a full pitch of basically the end of the movie. Like, it's basically saying something's going to happen at the end of the movie that isn't going to make much sense. I'm telling you now that it makes more sense than you think it does.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those things where clearly they got to the end, and you have these couple moments, like you said, it was probably an add-on where he's first talking to Hammond, and then here where they're like, "We'll just mention something about San Diego." We're laying the tracks.
Yeah.
We're laying the tracks, and it's going to just lead right in there so beautifully.
Yeah.
Now, meanwhile, the letting go of the animals, that all distracts Pete Postlethwaite from his murder attempt.
Yeah.
Because he's kidnapped a baby T-Rex, broken its leg, too, like a real dick.
Mm-hmm.
And our heroes find that dinosaur and bring it back to the RV.
As I got
the star of the show.
my note here is back to the Winnebago.
Yeah.
I mean, the puppetry here is amazing. That kicking leg of the dinosaur is...
Yeah.
I mean, that's a level of realism that we've not seen of any of the animatronics so far.
Mm-hmm.
And the return of the T-Rex, right? Of Daddy T-Rex, or Mommy T-Rex, I suppose.
But it's like pure. It's so pure sequel-dom.
Yeah.
It's such an imbas.
It's the start. That's it.
It's an increase because we got two now.
We got two.
Double it up, Tom.
Double it up. The movie makes no bones about it's twice as many.
Mm-hmm.
Of whatever you had last time.
Yeah.
But also that like the T-Rex is basically, even though it's not T-Rex Park, it might as well be.
Yeah, right.
They're trying to fashion T-Rex.
It's the showstopper until we get to the next movie.
This is the Kong or Godzilla of this. It's the star we can't do without.
Yeah.
Disgusting scene where Vince Vaughn spits into his hand.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm just like, this guy was a sex symbol?
Her hand, yeah.
And the T-Rex gets the big James Brown style entrance where, you talk about him for a long time before you actually see him.
I do also like when they're up in that high and the shot of the trees moving as they're approaching. I like that shot.
Yeah. And that animatronic head of the T-Rex is beyond beautiful.
It's great, yeah.
I think secretly that's what everyone loves about Jurassic Park.
I do too, yeah.
I mean, it's the
And that's one thing I like about this movie. Not that I'm fine with the Spinosaurus, but I like, you talked about the kind of internal consistency of the island itself and just bringing dinosaurs back. And I like that about this movie.
Yeah.
That we're still focused on the T-Rexes. Yes, of course we have 2 because it's a sequel, so we got to have more than 1.
And they have a new layer now,
But-
which is that they're good parents.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but behaviorally, I guess it makes the conjecture of their behavior makes sense to me. You know, you took my kid.
Well,
it's time
it's-
to fuck your shit up.
That's the thing about. I mean, it's the same. You know, in the original Jurassic Park with the Velociraptors, it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're anthropomorphizing them, and then in the next movie you anthropomorphize them a
Absolutely.
little more, and that's what's happening here with the T-Rex, because it's sort of like it's just behavioral bullshit said as if it was paleontology.
Mm-hmm.
And then the original movie, it was that, stand still and it won't find you. There's no precedent for that outside of Michael Crichton's book.
So you know what's funny about that is that is a huge part of the book.
Yeah.
Ian Malcolm, this, mathematician, at one point in the book, he just sort of flat out says, the idea that if you don't move, it won't attack you is nonsense. It's a predator. Of course it can see you. And it's like they disprove that in the second book.
Oh, okay.
What was thought to be true in the first book.
But not in the movie.
And I was always surprised that they didn't bring that back here for the movie. Yeah.
But then half the film is gone if you take that out.
Yeah, right.
You'd have to think a lot harder about how to escape the T-Rex. But yeah, this is the kind of peak of the RV.
This is the showstopper for me for this whole movie.
But which is not a showstopper. It's like,
I have to admit, it was a showstopper when I first saw it in 1997. I thought this scene was unbelievable.
Really? With
her falling on the glass and all of that. It waned for me on this viewing. I thought, oh, this is pretty,
yeah.
It's. I don't think it's quite as good as they think it is.
I mean,
but in 1997, I thought it was the one reason to go see the movie.
Interesting. I mean, I appreciate the kind of the classic movie making, having a literal cliffhanger sequence, and we know Spielberg likes to bring that element of the matinee serial in there, and
Right.
clearly that's what's going on here. But in the end, it's like all the excitement of watching a tow truck struggle to get enough momentum to pull a large motorhome. I mean, that's essentially all the scene is. And it gets it.
I guess I was more on pins and needles for her falling on the glass.
Uh-huh.
Like everything that happens inside the RV,
Okay.
I like very much. Yeah.
It certainly doesn't seem worth breaking the 2-hour mark, so you can have a non-dinosaur based tow truck scene. And then the T-Rex turns up into the scene as if they're wondering why it took so long for them to become part of the set piece.
Right, and the other thing that I noticed on this viewing was they took the time to push half of it off the cliff, but our heroes can't fall to their death, so then they leave it alone, which doesn't make sense for the behavior that they are saying these T-Rexes are there for.
They do that.
They would push the whole fucking thing off.
They do that throughout these movies. It's like, these dinosaurs are going to kill you unless you can't die for the story's sake. In which case,
Right.
they'll just leave.
Totally.
And it's two Rexes, right? We've literally doubled the amount of dinosaurs in the sequel. We have to see two T-Rexes instead of one.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I also like, there are moments in this film where something might happen that I don't like at all, followed by something I kind of do like happen. The sort of chivalry kind of, when they're all hanging.
Yeah.
And Richard Schiff comes in and it's like, what do you need? What do you need?
Okay.
And they're cracking jokes about 3 cheeseburgers, mine without onions.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's pretty stupid, but I love Richard Schiff's reaction to it, which is like the flash of a look that says, that was a pretty fucking stupid joke, and then running away to go try and get the cable to help them.
Yeah.
I like that.
But I like that, and this is where, again, Spielberg makes a certain kind of movie with a certain kind of view of the world, and I like the fact that they're rescued by
their adversaries. I like that too.
And it's like, yeah, that's how Spielberg sees the world. He's unlike pretty much any other director of his generation. You know, he's an optimist. He believes in, you know, he's like Bonacera. He believes in America in a way that, ironically, Francis Ford Coppola does not. That you know,
I also like that. I like that about the character of Tembo, about Pete Postlethwaite. I like that he's a human being, so he's going to save their lives, but he's also going to say, "Look what you fucking did. This is your fault."
and it goes back to the sort of Jaws.
And he is also not really wrong.
No.
You know?
And it goes back to the Jaws of it all as well. Like, you know, this is Spielberg likes to take two or more ideological factions, people with ideological and or generational differences, and put them in a potboiler situation.
Yeah.
And have them work together as a team and rescue each other. That's a really nice turn in this movie, that they're depending on each other for survival, I think.
Right.
So I like that. I like that term because you wouldn't get it from necessarily another director doing this material. I think it's about how Spielberg sees the world, the possibilities of people working together and making a better world. You know, is the anti-Scorsese in that respect.
Yeah. Right.
If you've seen Killers of the Flower Moon, what happens when people with ideological, generational differences get together? One murders the other.
They all kill each other. They blow each other up.
A man tries to poison his wife. And so and who the fuck knows what George Lucas thinks about anything, but, you know, I know he likes cars. I don't know if he likes America or not. It could go both ways.
Not sure how he feels about people.
Exactly, yeah. And going outside.
Yeah.
So they have to, you know, they work together in this difficult situation, which is a nice Spielbergian turn.
Yeah, now it's about, you know, it's funny because I like the idea of now everybody realizes what the problem is. Now we really have to get off this island, but there's still within that there's still whatever that character's name, Ludlow.
Yeah.
Arliss Howard, you know, so he's still like scheming. He's still, you know, he's realizing maybe he didn't sign up for what he bargained for, but he, you know, he's still greedy enough that he wants things to, you know, go his way, and of course, in the end, of course, they will. But again, we're kind of, you know, I like the idea of the teams coming together reluctantly.
Definitely, and then.
Because now it's time to survive.
What I don't like is the Mexican guy listening to music, sleeping on the job.
Yeah.
They've taken a stereotype from one ethnicity and given it to another.
But here's another lazy moment. We have something that I really like, followed by something I don't like. I really like the idea of Sarah and her clothes. It's so humid that the blood won't even dry. Yeah. I love that Pete Postlethwaite is noticing it. And it's like, we never have that moment where he says, okay, of course their territory is expanded because you're bringing the blood of the child, traipsing it through the fucking jungle. That's what happens. But all you get is the look from Postlethwaite recognizing that, even though he doesn't give voice to it. That, I think, is a great idea. Yeah. But then it's followed by Stomari walking 10 feet away and somehow getting turned around and lost. And we're told that he can't be found because the Mexican gentleman is now listening to music, and he's the only bridge to him and his being found, whereas everybody would hear him screaming.
Sure. Well, he fell down that.
And it's one of those cheats. It's one of those lazy cheats to get this guy lost so we can have the really fun, great scene with him and the compies.
But both these movies paper over the cracks of like how to separate people with them falling down hills that suddenly exist out of nowhere.
Yes.
And they fall down it like, you know, cowboys in old westerns.
Mach 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only time I've seen that believable is Romancing the Stone. Love it.
The Peter Stormare and the Tiny Sauruses scene, which I think is great in and of itself, but you're right, it doesn't make sense.
It ends very serial-like, didn't you think?
Yeah.
It felt that was the one moment where I was like, ooh, this feels like Temple of Doom.
Yeah.
Where he goes over the hump and they all jump over him, and then he pans over or moves, you know, it kind of tracks over, and then the blood's coming down the water.
And again, you know, that the critters movie, the birds or the swarm. That's what it feels like. Return of the Legacy Puddle is my next note.
Yes.
The real star of the picture is the puddle.
I did like that moment where Postlethwaite leaves for some reason, and then Ludlow is like, "Come on, let's go. Everybody get up."
Yep.
And nobody will move. And Vince Vaughn, who's on the other team, is like, "All right, guys, let's go." And they all get up and leave.
That's it. Don't listen to British people. What can I say?
Yeah.
The silhouette of the dinosaur in the tent made me think way too much of that Austin Powers gag. Pulling the stuff out of his butt in silhouette.
I never know how to feel about Sarah in these moments because she's so self-assured when they all find her, like everything's fine. And then she seems to crumble to pieces when the dinosaurs appear. And yet, if there were 2 T-Rexes outside my tent, I'd probably start crying too.
Yeah.
But it seems gender bent in a way that I'm not entirely comfortable.
There's a little bit of that. I think, again, and I think I've said this before, like, I hate it when characters in movies are photographers. Because there's just, it's like having another lens in the movie. So the idea is that she's behind the camera, so she's detached from what she's seeing, but as soon as she doesn't have the camera, she's exposed to it all. But I don't like that. I never like that. I think that's a cheap way of making that distinction.
Illustration, or Spielberg does still kind of refocus on the blood because she has washed the blood out of her clothes now, but we have that moment where she looks up and sees the clothes and she recognizes what has happened.
Yeah.
And yet it's never given voice, and I like that moment.
It's good, yeah.
It's the one time in this movie where they're not treating us like we're fucking idiots.
True, yeah. And it's entirely visual. I like that too. Clearly, all of the people in the situation haven't seen the original Jurassic Park because they immediately run when the T-Rex is.
Yeah, I like Jeff Goldblum saying "freeze, freeze, freeze," like trying to yell at them to not move, and how little they listen.
And you've got, I love how the tent is on the T-Rex's head and he's trying to shake it off like when a dog gets a towel on its face.
I went back and forth because I thought it's unintentionally comedic, and then I thought, well, is that what they're going for? And then I thought, it's just something that could happen.
Well, it's like when you put.
So I kind of went on this roller coaster ride of liking it and disliking it.
I just thought of I put a hat on my dog, and it shakes it off, and then that's why it felt like this was in reference to.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a nice water transition cut here. And I just feel like, I don't know, like Spielberg, again, and he talked about this ad nauseum, like if those directors who have 1 foot in classical Hollywood and 1 foot in the new American cinema, the new wave, they can pull from both equally, and that kind of transition through the waterfall feels like something from a Frank Capra movie. Like it's.
Well, before the waterfall, though, what do you think of that moment where our music-loving friend is stepped on and carried for 3 steps or so, and stomped?
He shouldn't have been sleeping on the job, I guess. Is that supposed to be like punishment? I don't know. Yeah, I just as if he hasn't been badly served enough already.
Yeah, I never think it looks quite as good as Spielberg thinks it does.
No, I agree. That I absolutely agree with. Anything non-animatronic has that problem, I think.
But then when we do get into the waterfall, it's one of those like I always think of what I was saying earlier about the things they're drawing from, because that's from the first novel.
Okay.
I don't know. There's just this part of me that says, hey, if it didn't fit in your first movie, like, why is it good for, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that seems to be...
Think of something else. I don't know.
That seems to be how a lot of directors think about adaptation. I haven't, nor will I, see Dune Part 2. But I heard
Someday you will.
if I'm forced to by this podcast, I will. But Denis Villeneuve was interviewed, and
Villeneuve.
Whatever.
There was a big debate about that with Josh Brolin, I think,
Oh, really?
on Colbert's show the other
Oh,
night.
fantastic.
Yeah. And then he was there. He was like, I'm saying it right and you're saying it wrong. So he's like, bring him out. How do you say your name?
He was interviewed, and he was saying that he put tons of Dune Messiah into Dune Part 2 because Frank Herbert went back and reconsidered not reconsidered the Paul Atreides character. He realized that readers weren't getting the Paul Atreides that he wrote, so he wrote a whole book basically saying, "Is this guy is not the hero you think he is." In my earlier book, and so the director is now infusing parts of Dune Part 2 with stuff that wasn't there when Frank Herbert wrote it.
Oh, gotcha.
But reflects what Frank Herbert retrospectively thought. So it reminds me of that, where they're like, there's no place for it in this movie, but
yeah,
this feels.
But it
this
can
feels
cut both
cinematic.
ways. I mean,
it feels.
Christopher Nolan wanted Batman on a motorcycle in the first Batman, and he just decided, well, it doesn't fit in this movie. But when you are planning a trilogy, it seems more organic in The Dark Knight.
And that's an interesting question. Did Spielberg think he was making a one-off when he did Jurassic Park, or was he saving parts of the book for,
Good question. Yeah.
Lost World is like
That's
Trailer for
interesting.
Pink Panther. It's just made of outtakes. We'll get there.
I also thought it seemed it seemed a little weird and cheap where they all go into the waterfall. The dinosaur, the T-Rex can't get them. One guy somehow discovers a snake in his shirt.
Well, you got to have a snake in a Spielberg movie.
You got to recognize the level of danger. Reach up, grab that snake, pull it out of your fucking shirt. Don't walk towards the dinosaur to get the snake out of your shirt.
But isn't that an Indiana Jones reference? It's like more scared of the thing that can hurt you less.
I guess. But then 2 seconds later, Jeff Goldblum runs through the water.
Yes.
I guess the T-Rex. I mean, just saying, like, it seemed
it's convenient. Yeah.
Convenient.
Yeah, it's out of the snake and into the T-Rex mouth.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We're about to get to the Raptors finally. Why don't we take another break and we'll come back?
Oh yeah, this is their. They've been mentioned, but this is the first time we're seeing them in the movie. Yeah.
We're getting to one of the parts that really made me hate this movie when I first saw it.
Okay.
And I'd like to. It's a specific moment, but I'd like to get your take on it.
All right.
So, let's take a break and we'll come back.
I think that does this involve monkey bars?
Oh well, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
All right.
Even before the monkey bars, which is obvious to me.
Yeah.
But I'm talking specifically about Steven Spielberg's choice in directing.
Okay.
In direction, before that I want your opinion on.
Fair enough.
All right. Yeah, the fucking monkey bar's terrible. So infuriating.
If it's not the monkey bars, I can't imagine what it is.
Podcast like I do. Boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. We're back. here we are, finishing up with The Lost World, Jurassic Park. Still can't get over that title.
Yeah.
We don't want people to confuse. Oh, fuck.
You think that's what it is?
It's what it was stated.
Oh.
I mean, I read it
because
on
of the Conan
IMDb
Doyle
notes.
book?
Yeah, they thought people would confuse it.
And they didn't think people would immediately think of the Jurassic Park book written by Michael Crichton, released in the past year.
Right.
Interesting. Wow, they must have
and
been...
also with a dinosaur on the front fucking of your poster.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they think to themselves they might not get it.
I guess in a way you can't be too mad at it, because it sort of suggests that there was greater respect for the audience in thinking that they were reading books like The Lost World in 1997.
Yeah. Before we get to the Raptors, I want to say, because there's, you know, early on, I mean, we've skipped way past it, but there's a portion of this movie to me where so much of the dialogue feels as though it was created just for the preview.
Yes.
Jeff Goldblum saying, ooh, yeah, that's how it always starts. Ooh, ah, and there's the running and then the screaming. And the run as fast as you can.
It's,
you know, all of these little moments.
How much is it that, and how much is it of going into a sequel being cynical about what it is you're doing? Like, lines like that suggest to me a sort of cynicism of like, you know, we know how it's predictable. We know how it's going to end. We know what we need to do. And you just can't separate that from how you're actually writing the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Or possibly they just wanted it for the trailer as well. I think that's also a distinct possibility.
It certainly seems like it. I love that after all this shit with the T-Rexes go down and they all start running away, we have a guy in brownface, Harvey Jason, as Ajay. I love that he's screaming... He's screaming, not in the long grass. Don't go in the long grass, as he's running through the long grass.
I also half suspect Pete Postlethwaite's in brownface. I don't know if they think he's
I think he's just really tan.
That earring kind of... Yeah, I mean, he's by no means Usual Suspects brownface. But...
No, yeah, right.
When that earring makes me think that they think it's a character who was originally Middle Eastern or something.
Yeah, maybe. I never got that sense, but...
I mean, yeah, he's Pete Postlethwaite to me, but...
Well, this long grass moment is the moment I was going to start hating this movie and never come back when I first saw it in the theater.
Okay.
One, we have it's a point of view shot, but it's directly on a screaming person.
Uh-huh.
So it's the point of view of I don't know what, because it's not the animal. But then there is a hard cut to a low shot so that we can get the Velociraptor leaping out of the grass. And that was the moment where I thought the camera knows what the animal is going to do before we do.
Yeah.
I don't like anything about that shot. I hate this movie.
Okay.
I hated it.
It's ineffective. I think they're going for a Planet of the Apes style.
To me, there are just moments in this movie where he forgot how to direct a movie.
He's got that Al Pacino problem.
Yes.
I don't know if it's as inept as you're giving it credit for, but I think the model that they're going for is the introduction of the gorillas in Planet of the Apes, where you see them, you don't see them, and then you see them.
See, but that's handled so
But
well.
that's what I mean. But
that's
it's an inversion
medium
of what you just said.
to long
Yes.
shots of watching them all come into frame, that kind of thing. In this one, the guy is screaming before we even see the animal come out of the grass, which means he can't see it come out of the grass yet. There's no reason for him to be screaming.
So that's what I mean. You should have looked at the execution of that rather than just the imagery, because that's what the visually the imagery they're pulling from. John Williams goes very Jerry Goldsmith in that scene as well.
Mm-hmm.
For once, ripping off someone other than himself. But the we talked about this on the Patreon only, but I guess you're getting a free preview here.
Little something extra.
We noted at the time that the camera looks surprised, and this isn't a movie called Planet of the Apes, so you shouldn't be surprised, but you are, because the camera looks surprised. And what you're talking about is the opposite of that, where the camera all
knowing.
It's all exactly.
It's omniscient. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Malcolm is injured again, and we don't know.
Yeah, but before that, he's got one of his preview lines where he says, "Run as fast as you can," and then they run through the tall grass and nothing happens. So what did he see?
Yeah. He saw a new Jurassic Park movie coming to your screens in 1997. Right. Yeah, but this whole thing, because they make a point of saying that all his injuries have healed from the first movie, and now is this supposed to be a recurrence of this? Because his leg just keeps is it a recurrence, or if it's a new injury, why injure him again? And also, the movie then forgets that he's injured, almost instantly.
He totally forgets. Yeah. I was just gonna say it bears, has no bearing on the story whatsoever as the movie goes on,
and
so it's completely uncalled for. To me, it was just to separate Vince Vaughn from everybody.
Exactly. Well, this is the moment that Spielberg talks about in that making of featurette. The moment where Vince Vaughn is scared by the Jurassic Park poster, and he said at that moment, and it was just such a good kind of observation that we would make, not because it's good, but because it's about sequels. But I'm just surprised that a director can articulate.
We're good. I know. Can say we're good.
I know, but I'm surprised that director can articulate it in the terms that we can.
Right.
But he said it was a moment to try and give people a sense of nostalgia for the film that they're not watching. And he said that's the bind you're in when you're directing a sequel. You want people to think about the original movie, but in doing so, they're not focusing on the movie that you're making.
Yeah, right.
And all of these scenes kind of proceed as if we're going back to Jurassic Park from the original. But that's exactly what we're not doing. This is a totally different island. We've never been here before.
Right.
So we get that impasse of Vince Vaughn looking at a poster of the first movie. And then the movie telling us that we should have nostalgia for something that we're seeing for the first time.
Yeah.
So,
well,
that was an interesting
I'll say this. This whole kind of next set piece is except for the parallel bars, except for the fucking gymnastics.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. This is where everything's coming together in a way that makes sense, that I like. I like the idea of people flying by the seat of their pants, just trying to survive, making quick decisions that help them minutely for seconds, for fractions of seconds, that basically just keep them from being bitten. Watching Jeff, and some of it is, some fairly good comedy too. Jeff Goldblum going into a room, a dinosaur jumping through the window of that room, followed by him reopening the door and running back out. I think that's great.
And it's this movie is all about doubling down, and they've doubled down on the intelligence myth of the raptors.
Yeah, right.
Because, in the last movie we had them opening doors, which was parodied brilliantly in The Critic, where they
oh, really?
That great
I don't remember that
one-season animated show about a movie, Roger Ebert style movie critic, and they had a parody of Jurassic Park where the
Lovitz
it's Jurassic Park, but the raptor slides a piece of paper under the door.
Credit card?
No, slides a piece of paper under the door, knocks out the key, and then pulls the key down it. But they're doubling down on it here because they're trying to get through. They have a raptor trying to get through a crack in the window. And digging the dirt out underneath the door.
Yeah, but I think that Spielberg, it's a good piece of filmmaking from Spielberg in that moment because he grains against your expectation. You see one dinosaur behind you digging at the door.
Oh,
your
yeah.
heroes
That's a
are
great
digging.
moment.
That's
And a great
good stuff.
animatronic head as well.
Yeah.
It's all...
That's the other thing is the Velociraptors themselves, they progressively get better looking in each movie.
The one in the next movie is phenomenal.
Fucking great. So good.
And it needs to be because, as we said, it's basically a person.
Because it's now it's a character. Yeah. It's got dialogue and everything.
And we can basically skip past the school gymnastics. And it was seeded earlier in the movie, right? She's been let go from the gymnastics team.
Yes.
But now it's again, we talked about this, the kids start to take on superheroic qualities, otherwise they'd get eaten.
Right.
Yeah. So, but
she has a very specific set of skills.
She does, yeah.
Not unlike Liam Neeson.
But even in the next movie, I think it's done somewhat better, and actually in a way that that will go forward into some ancillary Jurassic Park media, which we'll talk about then.
I do want to say, too, there's that moment where Sarah Julianne Moore gets onto the roof, and then the raptor's on the roof, and again, it kind of speaks to what I was saying before, like a quick decision where she realizes what she could, get that raptor off the roof by moving the tiles.
Yeah.
But she falls. Like in this kind of movie, you never want the person to fall to the ground because then they're screwed. But I like that idea of animals being animals. So when one falls on top of the other, they start fucking with each other, and that gives her the brief moment she needs to get away. I like all of that.
Story.
I think it's all
basically that's the go-to escape clause for all of these movies. It's like if you could get the dinosaurs to fight each other,
you're
good.
better off.
Yeah. And then basically the movie ends here because they get away.
Exactly.
They escape the island in a helicopter. So
meanwhile, Pete Postlethwaite is tranked a T-Rex,
and he's all sad about it.
His friend died.
Yeah.
From the raptors by doing what he said not to do, walking in the tall grass. But what I like the most about Pete Postlethwaite in this moment is he just kind of says goodbye as if the actor knew that the movie was going to go batshit crazy next. He just walks out of the movie.
Which is weird because there's not a scene speaking to it, but Vince Vaughn does exactly the same thing. He doesn't appear in the movie again, and there's no explanation for where he went.
Never. He called in that chopper, but he's not on it?
He's not on it, nor is he in the rest of the movie. That's my note at the end of the movie is like, what happened to Vince Vaughn? I mean, I know what happened. He had a conflict, but what is the movie telling me that happened to the character?
Right.
Talking about like diminishing returns and not being able to capture the magic of the original movie. A sign saying "In Gen we value your future" is not the same as when dinosaurs ruled the earth, no matter how hard you try to make it so.
Yeah. But here's the one portion, Spielberg has this idea, but there's no way of getting around how oddly this movie is framed in terms of how time has passed, what's going on, how quickly he gets a press conference together. It feels like it's midnight, and yet the whole city of San Diego is...
Well, there's a line speaking to that where he says, "Thank you for coming out in the early hours of the morning for this press conference."
It's just such nonsense.
It is. It's nonsensical. Also, if T-Rexes were this easy to subdue, it's hard to believe why large parts of the first movie ever took place.
Right.
So they need that shortcut.
And if it's a 2-hour flight from San Diego or from the island to San Diego, I mean, it's got to be a fairly long boat ride, right?
You would think.
Okay.
Oh yeah, the rest of the movie is essentially T-Rex.
But it all seems to happen within an hour of them getting off that island. The
rest of the movie is T-Rex goes to San Diego and basically I mean, the behind the
Such
scenes
a
story.
76 Kong.
The behind the scenes story is Steven Spielberg fell out of love with the original ending, which was going to be pterodactyls attacking the helicopter, and decided he wanted to see a T-Rex on the mainland.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought of San Diego because it was a port city. And so we get it's a double imbas, actually, because we get the dinosaur on the mainland instead of the mainland people on the dinosaur island. But it's also the travel sequel, right? It's like you relocate the main character to another city.
Right.
So we got
Just does it for the end of the movie.
Yeah. And the press conference is also very
But it doesn't,
King Kong as
there's such a lack of internal logic about this boat.
Uh-huh.
It makes no sense. Like, how did the T-Rex get out of that hole? And you're telling me in all the little nooks and cranny of this ship, it ate everyone?
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. This is the point where narrative plausibility becomes secondary to genre convention, because
Yes, right.
the storyline is King Kong. We can see that coming a mile off. The boat crashing into the harbor, when they say, where are the crew, they're all over the place. Even a little bit of Dracula in there, right? This is the Demeter.
Yeah, right.
So
Little Demeter, yeah, I was just going to say,
it's genre rules, I think, from this point onwards. And then, of course, we'll get perhaps my favorite moment of the movie, the Godzilla reference. Which makes me laugh even now. Just the idea of, like, Spielberg. And there's actually footage of him doing this where he's sort of like, we've got to have some Japanese businessmen running away. I think he says I think he says something like, it's like, I always wanted to direct a Godzilla movie. This is as close as I'm ever going to get.
Yeah, right. I think what's funny about it, too, is it looks like he might have been preoccupied or a little bit worried that it could be construed as racist. Because he starts to pull back, and then there's a white guy in the foreground, you know?
Well, not just a white guy.
But at least they all didn't have cameras.
Right, exactly, yeah. We're slightly beyond that. But, you know, I don't know what's not to love about a suspense-filled Dino City rampage. Feels like this should have been the movie all along.
Right?
And it's clearly, like you said, it's clearly where Spielberg's having the most fun, where he's most assured directorially.
So there, I'm kind of Jekyll and Hyde about this, because I think this is the most fun part of the movie, but I also recognize that it's total fucking nonsense and
it knows
ridiculous.
It's silly, I mean, it's literally Spielberg's.
But I agree with you that I think it knows it's silly.
This is Spielberg's exact words. I did this on a whim.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it feels like, and he commits to the bit, I think.
Can't take that away from him.
The smash, like, it's like the smashing the border
and the
sign.
smashing of the bus. The smashing of the bus is an incredible shot. Like, the effect of it, because it's all in one shot. Animal running down the street, putting its head against the bus and smashing the front end of a bus. It looks fantastic.
And they did that in Burbank in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Took over 2 blocks of Burbank for that. Not actual San Diego, interestingly.
Yeah, right.
And you know, the moment I think that, I don't know, when I hear people's responses to this movie, they always mention this moment. I think just because it feels so Spielbergian, when the T-Rex goes into the backyard of a suburban family home, and the kid wakes up and says there's a dinosaur in our backyard, and and the Spielbergian parents start to reveal all their internal dynamics.
Yes, all their problems.
Which again is like, Spielberg's just got the knack of that, of like revealing that in his characters. And the father, I think, is supposed to look like a grown-up Elliot as well, because he really looks like Henry Thomas looks like now. So
Henry, yeah, right.
I had to check it wasn't Henry Thomas, actually. So it's also interesting that this is the only part of the film where they let Dr. Malcolm be Dr. Malcolm, because he gets in his sports car.
Yes, right.
Which is the only evidence of this rock star quality that has been, you know, been.
I keep thinking, where did that car come from?
It came from his former life where he was a cool guy.
Well, I don't even know. Is this his car?
Oh yeah, it could be. I think it's supposed. I think it's like, it's his car that he was gonna sell so he could be a father kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the 76 station joke too.
With
I
the
like
ball?
that ball
Yeah.
rolling down. Yeah.
That's what Spielberg said. Like he's like, oh, I could see it all. The 76 ball rolling down the gas station, the Japanese businessman, and the fake movie posters are
and
fun
so
as well.
the part, I don't remember if I said this on air or off air. I think it was off air when I said I know the part of this movie you love, the video store.
Well, that was, yeah. I mean, all those mock-ups of the fake.
Do you love those fake posters?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, I love it.
Yeah,
I love
me
it
too.
because it's funny, but I also love it because it's humor directed at themselves. Right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like these are the kind of movies that exist because of Steven Spielberg. So for him to recognize that that's the
Jack
culture.
and the Beanstalks. That is funny.
And it's like actors
Come
who
on.
have recently been in Spielberg movies, like Robin Williams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just think I don't think other directors would have been willing to poke fun at themselves in quite the same way.
Yeah.
So I really do like it.
Now the only thing that kind of fails for me in all of this is that they get the infant, the infant T-Rex. The T-Rex starts chasing them. I love that they crash through a building and then start carrying the young T-Rex with like Mama T-Rex in chase.
Yeah.
But then she has to just stop chasing them for a good 5 minutes so that they can get all the requisite, it's like Spielberg's like, forget everything you just saw. We gotta get Ludlow into the into the hull of that ship.
He is
so that he can
literally
be eaten.
riding this on the hoof, right? And it feels like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't forgive him for fucking that up, and yet there's a corniness to it that I really kind of appreciate.
It feels like it feels like there was never pages for these scenes. It's just Spielberg dictation that they filmed from.
Right. It almost feels as if he's got a special magic camera.
Yeah.
Where he says, so, and he's got a little microphone that says, and then what happens is they get the T-Rex. Now, when they go into the building, there will be no guards there. Why are there no guards guarding the most important thing ever? Who knows? But once they get it and get it into the car, then a lot of guns will appear. And the camera just magically has already shot all of this. And
I gotta say, I know he's made a film called AI, but Steven Spielberg is gonna love what AI can do for him.
Yeah.
But I thought that that after all this, craziness, when they get back to the waterfront, it feels like a 70s movie, like a Spielberg 70s movie.
It feels very Kong 76 to me.
Kong
all of it,
76, but also
it's
back to
just he didn't get to the top of the Empire State Building. He just came back to here.
Kong 76, Planet of the Apes sequels, Get Carter, all the 70s movies that end on a boat at the waterfront for some reason. Probably because it's cheap to film there. So I thought there was after all that craziness, there was a return to a more grassroots style of cinema. So this whole sequence to me captures everything that I enjoy about Spielberg as a director in different ways. It's sort of like a really quick speed through of his entire career in one sequence.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And it's all him, right? This is the only
original,
wholly original part of the movie, and it feels like it's, no one else could have done it this way. And it's a shame, in a sense, that the movie doesn't just end there, because the next couple of minutes
have a tag.
Bullshit. It's the tag is bullshit. And that thing that we've talked about again and again, we go real CNN anchors doing fake news.
I know. I knew you were going to say that about.
How could I not?
I know.
And it's such fake news. They're going,
He
dinosaurs
came
exist.
on screen, and I said, "There's no." I think I remember that guy. There's no way that guy's not real. Tom's gonna have a fit.
Oh, I remember watching
Why
him
don't
on
you just
CNN.
do your job reporting the news, asshole?
I remember watching him. Yeah, amoral moonlighting from all our national news anchors. And then we see the Navy escort on TV.
Yeah.
With the American military cavalry coming to save the day.
Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it's a longer boat ride.
Yes. And Hammond is back from his surrogate deathbed now that his surrogate has died. Maybe that's what was keeping him in bed, was that as long as his surrogate is out there, he couldn't get out of bed. Now his surrogate is dead. He lives again.
What do you think of that moment where it's funny because it should be such a comeuppance, all these people are dead. The Tyrannosaurus Rex is loose in the streets, and Goldblum comes up to him and says, "Now you're John Hammond." It feels like it's supposed to be this huge applause moment.
It's trying.
He doesn't even learn his lesson. He's still got to die.
He doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't learn his lesson. His lesson was already learned. I think they're basically trying to suggest that basically we planned the San Diego thing all along, which
yeah, right.
They absolutely didn't, even by Spielberg's own admission. Yeah, and then we get the final shot of Dinosaur Island.
Yeah.
Again, it's like you just want to see a lot of dinosaurs in the same shot. It doesn't matter what they look like. But we get the pterodactyl teaser, which clearly they had a plan in mind.
Now, you keep saying pterodactyl, but I think you're going to upset dinosaur people. I think they're pteranodons.
Oh, okay. I'm using the... this is the... To me, it's the generic name, not the brand name.
There you go.
Yeah, they're not... But, flying dinosaurs.
But it's so funny to me that this is the last shot that Spielberg chooses because it's in the middle of a John Hammond speech about how we have to isolate these dinosaurs and keep them where they are and leave them alone. And then he chooses to show us the one animal that can leave the island all by itself whenever it wants.
But that's the point, isn't it? That's to say if there's sequel potential, it's in flying dinosaurs.
Yeah, but in the next movie, they're going to walk it all back as though they never could have gotten out until that movie happened.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. But in the moment, it's just an apology for having cut them from the end of the movie, and to say
yes.
that whatever the next movie is going to be, if we make
it will include them.
It'll be flying dinosaur based, which it is.
Yeah. Well, there you have it.
There you have it. Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Highs and lows, friend. Highs and lows.
Yeah, highs and lows. I don't feel too differently about how I felt before, but we'll see.
I didn't think you would.
No, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and that incompetence is definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
You've not picked out anything that particularly bothers me, but that might be because I have less respect for the kinds of movies you
generally
do. Yeah. But anyway, I'll go into my credit check.
Please.
David Cope co-wrote this movie.
Yeah.
Second unit directed it, and appears in the movie as a character called, quote, Unlucky Bastard, who is the guy who gets eaten in the video store.
Oh, is that him? Because one of my notes was it would have to be the unluckiest ADR work anybody would ever have to do, because when he's getting eaten, he's like, oh no.
Yeah.
And it just sounded ridiculous.
I got news for you. All those extras are crew. Because they were filming
great.
in the middle of the night and they didn't have time to cast people.
Fantastic. Even all the Asian guys?
Probably not, no. They probably came from that central casting.
Seems like it.
Asian wing. They were like, cameras for this? No cameras. No cameras. They bring their own cameras. And then hope they're not in a racist movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's like, this guy is gonna rides Steven Spielberg sequels into the ground, essentially, because the last thing he did was co-write Dial of Destiny.
Yeah,
which
right.
I'm going to say again, because nobody has mentioned that the same person who wrote Crystal Skull wrote Dial of Destiny, and you wonder why it didn't work. Attenborough gets billing above Vince Vaughn,
Yeah, right.
which is interesting because it's like two kinds of stardom passing each other
In the night.
in the night.
Yeah.
Mr. Howard's dialect coach. I just wanted to put in a word for Arliss Howard. I didn't know he wasn't British.
All right.
I when I realized it was Arliss Howard, I was like, oh, probably not British. But good job, Nadia Vaness.
Perfect.
I mean, you could hire a British actor, but
Who would want to do that?
who would want to do that? Yeah. It's noticeable how
They're always
cramped
talking about Big Ben.
Bobbies on bicycles.
Yeah.
Anything that appears in
Fish
that
and
Roger Miller.
chips.
Everything that appears in that Roger Miller song about England. It's noticeable how cramped the credits get when the effects people arrive. It's like cinema's not prepared for the amount of people we'll have to credit.
Right.
And then finally, effects supervisor Mark Crash McCreary. Now,
Oh, wow. Wow.
not the name you want of a person who works predominantly with computers.
Agreed.
Is it really? You want to stay away from a nickname like that, I think, that involves the word crash. And that is the end of my credit check.
All right. Yeah, yeah, it's a mess.
It is a mess.
But it's certainly a mess that I enjoy watching more now than I did when I first saw it. I'll give it that.
Yeah. I think it's like seeing the wood for the trees sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Though I guess the opposite. Wait a minute. Do you see the wood for the trees or the trees? Can't see the wood for the trees.
You're seeing the movie through the trees. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think the problem is everyone's seeing the wood first and missing the trees. And the trees are pretty good. There's some good trees in there, is what I'm saying.
Some nice
That's
trees.
cogent film criticism.
All right. Any last words about the Lost World?
No. Can't wait to
Yeah, I'm excited for
complete the trilogy.
Jurassic Park 3. We'll talk about
find
that
out whatever
next.
our sequels are sequel pitches are going to be.
Right? Better think of one.
Given that there are 3 more of these movies.
Are we saying we can't go to Jurassic World? That would be kind of a cheat, wouldn't it?
It'd be impossible for me, as I have not seen 2 out of 3 of those movies. But you'd be able to do it if you want. You can do that if you want. You can do whatever you want.
Nah, I'll stick with Jurassic Park.
Okay.
I'll think of something.
I get the sense Jurassic World is a rebadged Jurassic Park, so...
Yeah, I mean, the thing is like when you think about these movies, like thinking about trying to make another one, you do feel for people where you think, okay, so how the fuck do you get them on this island?
Yeah.
I never have like a satisfactory answer, or I don't think any of these sequels have a satisfactory answer.
But they also know
I don't know that I'll be able to come up with a satisfactory answer either.
But the difference is I think both these movies don't know that they don't have a satisfactory answer and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Both times.
Agreed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got to know what you think of The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
You say that colon with such disdain.
I do. I really do.
Like you're talking about an actual human colon.
I'm trying to knock the movie down a peg just when I say the title. If for no other reason than I forgot that they did that, and it's ridiculous that they did that. It's so funny.
It should also be a semicolon, technically.
Mm-hmm.
because they're supposed. It's basically saying the
Yeah.
same thing on each side.
The same thing. Yeah, exactly.
It's if you were to say it out loud, you'd be like, "The Lost World, Jurassic Park."
Perfect. I would hire you on the spot with that one line reading.
Imagine that in the trailer. You get like the gravelly voice guy who always does like trailers from that
Right.
era, and then at the end, The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
And then you get somebody's. Can we take that one more time, please?
What? I just changed the grammar a little bit,
That's
so it
all I
made
did.
sense.
It's not my fault.
Literally just made the bottom dot.
Not my
Comma.
fault. Your fault. Your fault. You titled your movie wrong.
I suddenly turn into Orson Welles in the voice booth. No, it doesn't
That's
make any
what it
sense,
is, though.
what you're
The
saying.
title
It doesn't make any
represents
sense.
everything to me that's wrong about this movie because they got everything backwards, and they felt obliged to because the book was called The Lost World, but what they made was Jurassic Park, The Lost World.
Yeah. But that's it. I guess because Lost World, the book, was such a success that they could actually trade off that name as well as Jurassic Park. So they thought,
Right.
why cheat ourselves of either audience?
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tell us what you think. You know what to do. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Instagram. Find us nowhere else. Send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. When you hear us next, you know it, Jurassic Park 3, famously derided film. We're going to set you straight. All right, for Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Hey, when the adult sees us once again with his baby, isn't he going to be like, you? You know, there may be some angry recognition. That's Jeff Goldblum via Adam West
Yeah.
and William Shatner.
That was great. Totally. I can see it all.
I'm trying to think of him as Troy McClure's agent. That's what I'm visualizing.
Yes.
Have you heard of
Absolutely.
Planet of the Apes?
All right,
The
everyone.
movie or the planet?
Thanks for listening.